book got published, it became very popular. And after that, what happened? They realized that the suicide rates also suddenly started going up. Everybody who was in love with the rich girl started shooting themselves. So this is exactly what happened. So they would dress themselves like Werther and they would shoot themselves. Or when the post the suicide they will find that book beside the dead body. So that's why they actually called it the Werther effect. So this is the first time. This is even before today's mass media. This happened in 1777. So you can imagine how long ago this was. So there is something called imitative suicide. Any idea what that is? Any idea? The team who debated against social media, can you tell me what imitative suicide is? Something very similar. You were saying there's a spike of suicides when a famous celebrity dies. So what happens is people try to imitate the death of a famous celebrity. In India also, after Sushant Singh Rajput died, a lot of people committed suicide just like him, lot of teens. Okay, we all follow a lot of things, no? We like to think we are unique, but heart of heart we always like to imitate someone. When we were growing up, so I was growing up in Chennai. That time Rajinikanth was the biggest fan, biggest celebrity there. So we used to walk like Rajinikanth. I didn't wear glasses then, but I'll take black spectacles. I will rotate it. I will do all that. So we all try to imitate. All of you would like to imitate somebody, one celebrity or the other. So heart of hearts, we all like to imitate people. So like that, just like if some famous person commits suicide, there's a very high chance that a lot of depressed people will imitate that and also commit suicide. So that is also called imitative suicide. Just a point for the team that spoke against social media. And you also talked about blue whale challenge. I don't know where you must have been quite young when that came out. So I remember this blue whale challenge very closely because I was working in Lucknow. I was working in Lucknow in a psychiatric hospital when there were more than almost 5 to 10 children were brought by the parents after cutting their hands or attempting suicide. You know, the blue whale challenge was I was not able to understand it then. I don't know if you all remember what that was. It was basically multiple tasks that you have to do. It was a game. First task will be go give something to somebody. Slowly the challenges will get more and more difficult. And the last challenge is that you have to commit suicide. And even in India, I was very surprised. Even in India, a lot of children were affected by that. So we used to get a lot of patients like that because of this blue whale challenge. So at that time, I was very skeptical about the social media effects on suicide. Okay, now we've talked a lot about the bad things about social media or mass media. You know, the same thing we were talking about now we're talking about social media. If in the 1950s and 1960s, same debate was happening about television. When every house started having television, the same debate was going on. Is television good? Is television bad? What will happen to our children? But today we don't talk about television anymore because it is very well accepted. Now we don't even talk about that. So probably when you and I grow up and our children are having a debate, they won't even talk about social media. That time it will be a different thing altogether. So every generation has its own challenges. And this generation's challenge is probably social media. So social media has a lot of bad things, but of course a lot of good things also. So when I was growing up, I was in college when actually we started getting these touch phones. And I was in 8th standard when some cell phones even became popular in India. Before that it was only something called pager. I don't know, I think the staff will remember, I don't think you guys will know all that. At that time, if somebody is depressed, they cannot talk to anybody. They will not know what to do. You will be suffering in silence, you will be suffering alone. Today, there is so many, media has, there's so many things. You can call a helpline and say, okay, I am depressed, can you help me? If you're depressed, you can call a friend and say, "I am depressed. Can you talk to me properly, or can you tell me something to cheer me up?" Back in the day, we did not have all of that. So there are some good things also to social media. And I was very surprised that the team that was talking for social media told something about the Papageno effect. I was very surprised that you guys did so much of research and came for this debate. Who was that who brought up that? Thank you so much. So just like the Werther effect, there is another effect called the Papageno effect. What that means is basically in Japan, what they did was, they said, okay, we know that social media can badly influence suicide. We will try something different. We will try putting positive messages out there. We will try telling people, okay, if you are depressed and you want to commit suicide, where all can you go and approach for help? What are the alternatives to attempting suicide? And they actually realized that by doing this, they started sending out advertisements, programs saying suicide is preventable. That was the ad. By doing this, they realized that the rate of suicide dropped significantly. So, at the same time, so just like how media can be bad, media can also be used for a lot of good things. And of late, at least as a psychiatrist, I can tell you, the stigma associated with mental health, that has significantly come down only because of mass media. Without that, we wouldn't have even talked about suicide. I remember when I was growing up, when we hear somebody commit suicide, nobody will talk about it. You can't talk about it at all. It has to be very silent. I'm sure all the staff will relate to that. You should not talk about something called suicide at all. Today, all that has changed purely because of media. So media has had a great impact on decreasing the stigma associated with mental health as well. Okay, so now that we know that media has a lot of influence on suicides, so what happened is the journalist groups, they all came together and they decided, okay, we will put out a list of criteria which is called ethical journalism. Ethical journalism means whenever you get the news of somebody who has committed suicide, how will you report that? Okay? So the first point they said is, we will not put it on the front page. Okay? So no suicidal report should ideally come in the front page of a newspaper. So this ethical journalism is part of the US, not in India. Okay, so they said any suicide, anybody, celebrity, not celebrity, whoever it is, it will not come on the front page. Second thing is, they will not sensationalize. Sensationalize means it will not come breaking news, somebody has committed suicide. That will not happen. If somebody has committed suicide, it will be one small line somewhere. Nobody will notice it. Third thing, how they committed suicide will never be published. Like, for example, what tablet they took, what poison they took. Because if you do that, somebody else also will know, okay, if I take this, I also can commit suicide. So they said, we will not publish that. Then last thing they did was, they will not put out pictures. Pictures meaning pictures of someone hanging or somebody dead. They will only put one passport size photo, old photo, only that they will put. But what happened in India, when Sushant Singh Rajput died, every news thing was like breaking news. This was the breaking news for so many days, correct? So how the ethical journalism was not at all alive or active in India. So it was quite sad to see. So basically, all of you are young people here. One day you might all grow up to become you might hold some position of power. That day I encourage you to put pressure on the government to change the way they report suicides in India. Okay? So all of you are young people, you should take it up as a challenge. So the government of India also has put restrictions on certain things, especially after the Mumbai attacks. If you remember the 26/11 Mumbai attacks, newspaper reports were publishing everything live that was happening. And because of that, they say that the Pakistani terrorists were able to find out where people were, so on and so forth. If you read reports, you'll realize. So after that, the government brought out guidelines for reporting on terrorist attacks. You cannot say live location. You cannot report on what is happening immediately. So like that, hopefully, someday the government will bring out guidelines for reporting on suicides also. Okay, so I have talked a lot. So I'm going to ask you some questions and see how much you know about suicides. Is suicide a criminal offense? Yes. Why is it a criminal offense? Sit down, you can.
According to Indian Penal Code, if someone commits suicide, so it is a crime because he was killing yourself. According to Indian Penal Code, you can't kill yourself.
So hurting yourself is a crime. So where did this law come from? So back then, India actually follows the IPC, Indian Penal Code. So that is very much similar to the British system. So in Britain, basically they had this, the Christian religion was intertwined in their laws. So if you try to commit suicide, it is a criminal offense. If you try to commit suicide, they will kill you. You see the logic there? You are anyway trying to commit suicide. They will take you to court and then they will hang you. It was very silly the way they approached suicide. So just like when British left India, we also did not change our penal code. So we also continue the same system. So if anyone attempts suicide, you will have to go to jail. So what happened there was because a lot of suicides stopped getting reported in India. Why? Because if you report it, then you'll have to go to jail. So a lot of people will try to hide it, so on and so forth. So the good thing that the government of India has done now is in 2017, there was something called a Mental Health Care Act, where they actually decriminalized suicide. So the government said anyone who attempts suicide and is brought to a hospital is not to be treated like a criminal. You can treat him as somebody who is mentally unstable, meaning he needs psychiatric help, but he is not a criminal. But do we follow that today? We don't follow that. So many private hospitals, if you take somebody who has attempted suicide, they'll say, no, we can't take you, go to the GH. Okay? So this is information for all you nurses out there. Tomorrow you will all be working in different private hospitals. You have to know that suicide is not a crime anymore in India. It was till 2017, it was, but after that, the government actually has come and said it is not a crime. However, the other side is there is still some harassment from the police and so on and so forth. So the hospitals also are not willing to take in people who have attempted suicide. But hopefully that will change very soon. Any idea how many Indian statistics on suicide? What is it? 15%? 15% is too many. It's actually, statistically, it is only 10 in 1 lakh. But all of us will know somebody or 2 or 3 people who have attempted suicide at least. So that statistic is a very, very terrible statistic. Why is that? Because of this reason that people think that you should not report suicide. Okay? So suicide doesn't get reported. So that's why this value in India especially is very low. So when it comes to women versus men, who commits suicide, who attempts suicide more? Okay, I get an answer here. They're saying the men attempt suicide more. Anyone wants to counter that? Ladies? You also agree that men commit suicide more? Correct, but wrong. Both, I'll explain. So if you see Western countries like America, Europe, so on and so forth, the number of men who commit suicide are far higher than number of women who commit suicide. But in India, the ratio is reversed. Women commit more than men. Any idea why? All the ladies are sitting to the side. What do you think? What is the reason? Anyone can answer. Probably the men also can help out. Nobody knows? Huh? Violence, abuse, great. Attention seeking. Okay. Domestic violence. Excellent. Anything else? There are a lot of things, right? The social construct, the dowry system, caste, lot of things are there. So, very surprisingly, in India, the statistics is totally reversed. World over, you'll see men committing more. But in India alone, India and the Southeast Asian countries, you'll see women committing more than men. Okay, so I'll ask you another question. So this is attempted suicide. When it comes to completed suicide, meaning suicide, attempted suicide which causes death, who are more, men or women? Men. Why? Any idea? Anything? You're being troubled by the women, huh? Is that right? Yeah, so if you realize statistically, women attempt more, but the end result, the completed suicide is lesser because women have harmless ways of attempting suicide. However, when men attempt less, but the result is very bad because when men attempt, it invariably ends up in completed suicide. So that is something which you have to remember. So the risk is always higher in women attempting. But if a man has attempted suicide, there's a higher chance of him dying than a woman who has attempted suicide. So these are the statistics. So world over, you'll realize that there are two, if you draw a graph of suicide, it's called a bimodal graph because there's one spike at one age and there's another spike at one age. Can you tell me where are these two spikes? What ages? Okay, the first spike is at the adolescent age. Adolescent age means 15 to 25. Okay? So you are all at that age. So that's the first spike. Where is the next spike that happens? 30, yeah, it's not 30. Any other guess? Anything? Yeah, so ma'am is saying it's a geriatric population. Above 60 there is another big spike, meaning post-retirement at that age there is another spike. So these are the two most vulnerable categories for suicide. That adolescent age and geriatric age. Adolescent age, any idea why these things happen? Why there are a lot of suicides? Sorry? So, maturity. Immaturity. Very good. What else? Sorry, huh? Failures. Yeah. Relationship problems. And what else? Loneliness. Adolescents are very, very impulsive. You want something, you have to get it now. When you go older, that impulsivity will go up. Most of you, when you are young, you'll be very angry. If I don't get something, I'll punch the wall. But you don't see your parents doing that because that impulsivity comes down with age. Why is there a spike at the geriatric age group? Why is there a second spike there? Sorry? Isolation. Excellent. Especially in the West, meaning the US and Europe, they don't have a joint family like us. So if your children leave home, you have to stay alone. Till you have work, you have something to do. After you retire, you don't know what to do. So then you become very lonely. You become very, restless, and then that's why there's another spike. But in Indian data, if you see, there's only one spike. There's an adolescent spike. However, there is no geriatric spike. Any idea why?
Joint family.
Joint?
Joint family.
Joint family. Okay, excellent. What else? Old age homes in India. Okay. One thing is, lot of people die before 60. Okay. The life expectancy. What is Indian life expectancy now? 63, 65. Average life expectancy. So in developing countries, invariably before 60, a lot of people die. Another thing is, if you realize, reporting of suicides in elderly is absolutely not there in India. You see some farmer in Washim who has committed suicide, you think they will report that? They will not report. So we don't know. We are thinking, okay, joint family is protecting us and all that, but real data actually we don't know. I'm sure there probably is a spike there also, but we don't know that. Okay, so what types of people commit suicide? Hey, if none of you are answering, I'm going to come down there and I'm going to ask you questions. So what type of people?
Mentally abnormal.
Excellent. So mentally abnormal, meaning one is the depressed people will commit suicide. Somebody who has depression, they will commit suicide. Who is the other person?
Financial problem.
Financial problem I will include under the depression. So they are worried. Somebody who's worried about something, either a mental problem or a financial struggle or some problem that has been there for a long time. So then they want to commit suicide. Who else will commit suicide? Yeah. So there are two types if you realize. One is the impulsive and one is the depressive. So we look at it as two types. Impulsive is, okay, I fought with my wife, I have a problem with my boyfriend, okay, I'm going to try something today. Or my mother shouted at me, okay, I'm going to do something today. I failed in my exam, so immediately I will do something. Very difficult to stop an impulsive attempt. The other part is the depressive person. Depressive person is the person all of you should be able to identify. You're all nurses, you're all studying to help people. So you should know how to identify a depressive people. How can you identify a depressive person? What are the signs of depression? Loneliness. Okay, so what do you see in them? How can you say, okay, this person here is depressed? How can you say that? Lack of? Yes, a lack of initiative. Somebody who was very cheerful, who was volunteering a lot earlier, currently now he's not doing anything. He is very quiet. He's like chup chap, he's sitting. He doesn't like to take initiative. Excellent. What else? What else? How else will you identify a depressed patient? Excellent. So ma'am is saying doesn't maintain personal hygiene. So when you are normal, you want to get ready, you want to take bath, you want to do everything. But when you're depressed, your mind is not normal. No? You are thinking of a lot of bad things. You stop taking care of yourself. What else? What else? Excellent. So they will be in a withdrawn state. Withdrawn meaning they will be in like one shell. They won't want to talk to anybody. They don't want to go and interact with anybody. So even if you come, okay, come, why don't we go play? They will not be willing. If you are wanting to start a conversation with them also, they will not be willing to start. So these are some small ways of identifying a depressed patient. So the depressed patients you actually can identify. Okay? So these are the people who attempt suicide by writing a note. The approach to suicide will be very different from by the impulsive and the depressive patient. Impulsive patient can be anything. Immediately they'll get angry, they'll go do something. But a depressed patient will actually plan for a suicide. He is actually very worried. He or she is very worried. So he spends time planning on how to commit suicide. So such a patient you should never miss. Okay? Very important. So you should always pick up such a patient. Okay, I think all of you are sleepy. So I will end with a nursing question. Okay? So all of you are studying to be nurses. Okay? So the rate of suicide is actually going up over time. So by the time you all start practicing, you will definitely come across a patient who is depressed. Okay? You may not work in a psychiatric hospital. Even in a normal hospital, you will come across such a patient. Okay? So suppose such a patient comes to the OPD. The doctor wants to admit this patient. He is writing suicidal precautions to be obtained, to be observed in the ward. Okay? So he is writing this and he is sending the patient for admission. You are all the nurses sitting here. What are the suicidal precautions you will observe for such a patient? Sorry, come again. Sharp objects. So any sharp object in the ward, you will make sure is not accessible to the patient. Okay? It may be a scalpel, it may be a needle, it may be a syringe, whatever it is. None of that has to be accessible to the patient. Anything else? Excellent. So try and use a table fan instead of a ceiling fan. Or for example, make sure that the bed of the patient is not directly under a ceiling fan. Okay? Yes. Anything else? Keep medication or any poisonous material away from the patient. Okay? So apart from medication, what else is poisonous in the ward? Expired drugs, but you won't have any expired drugs in your ward. Okay? What else? Disinfectant, excellent. Disinfectant. In India we use acid to clean the toilet, phenol to clean the toilet. All these are poisonous substances. Okay, so no sharp objects, no poisonous substances. What is the other one we discussed? A distance from the bed away from the fan. Anything else? Surveillance system. Okay, that is not under your control. No, the hospital may not have surveillance. Excellent. So that is the most important thing. You cannot watch the patient 24/7. That is not possible. As when you become nurses, you'll be in a ward with at least some 20 people, 20 patients. You will have to go give medicines, you will have to do that, you will have to go take the sample to the lab, so on and so forth. You cannot be with the patient all the time. So one bystander has to always be with the patient. How many bystanders will you ask for? That is a big question, no? How many bystanders? Any idea? I would say at least 2 bystanders. Why 2 is because let's say one bystander has to go buy food. Let's say one bystander has to go and buy medicine. Who will be with the patient at that time? So preferably, lot of hospitals will not allow 2, but preferably if you can, please make sure that 2 bystanders are always with the patient. Okay, what else? How else will you prevent a suicide in the ward? So you are all in charge of bed management, right? So when a patient comes in, you will have to allot the bed. So where will you allot this patient's bed?
Near window.
So this is the nursing station, I am standing here. That is the exit. or the entrance to the ward, where will this patient's bed be? Close to me or far away from me? It has to be the closest bed to the nursing station so that you can actually observe what is happening there. Okay? So that you will have to make sure that is always followed. A lot of hospitals will have curtains between beds. What happens? Can you allow that? In this case especially, you should not allow. All other cases, you want privacy, very good, that is good. But in such a case, especially when you know that this person has high suicidal tendencies, make sure that that curtain is open, because inside the curtain you don't know what is happening. You cannot predict or you cannot stop something which you cannot see. So you should always be in a position to be able to see. Okay, so you would have gone to different hospitals. Lot of wards will be there. Suppose you are the, just imagine, I am the patient, or you are the patient, you are very suicidal. Where will you come? Where will you attempt suicide in the ward? So this is the nursing station. You've been put in the first bed here. Okay. So everywhere I turn, some nurse is looking at me. Okay. So I can't attempt in the ward. Where else will I attempt? Excellent. So what else can they use? You've already talked about acid and phenol in the washroom. What else can they use? Specifically in the washroom. Indian washrooms has some. Yeah, excellent. So Indian washrooms, no, if you see, I know nowadays things are changing, thankfully. These kind of glasses will be there. Those slanted glasses, I don't know if it's still there. A lot of hospitals have changed, but certain older hospitals will have these slanted glass there. You should make sure that that is also not there. When they go to the bathroom, can you let them go alone? Yes or no? What? How can you can't send two people into the bathroom, no? How can you stop that? So you should never allow, you should tell the bystander that they should hold the door closed. They should not lock it from inside. Okay? The bystander has to hold the door closed like that till the time they want to finish whatever they want to do. No locking from inside. So these are very important things which you will not read in textbooks. Okay? So you should make sure that you know all these things. If something goes wrong, then they'll catch whoever the nurse in charge is. Because it's very easy for the doctor to get away. Because doctor has documented suicidal precautions to be observed. Doctor's job is over. So it is your job to make sure that a suicidal patient who is coming in does not, that attempt or something like that does not happen in the ward. Okay? Yeah, so I think I've taken a lot of time. So I think all of you are sleepy. Anyway, thank you so much for this time. Thank you.